Hi, my name is Dr. Abigail Lavrini. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and owner of the practice Psych Ed Coaches, which is an ADHD coaching practice in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm also the author of the book Succeeding with Adult ADHD, which you can see here. And today what I'd like to do is talk to you briefly about managing time, and that is a topic that a lot of individuals with ADHD have a really hard time with. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look here at an exercise that is actually found in chapter 3 of this book. And that chapter is on improving time management and overcoming procrastination and fear. So first, what we're going to do is you can see on the worksheet right here that we're going to create what's called a quarter-hour schedule. And this is the type of schedule that you'd create in a planner that is broken down into 15-minute segments or quarter hours. I really like those types of planners because what they do is they create a visualization of time throughout the day. If you have a planner that just kind of has a block and says Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's really difficult to understand where in a day you're going to get something done. And a lot of times what happens with individuals with ADHD is they tend to sometimes underestimate, but most often, sometimes overestimate, but most often underestimate the amount of time that a task is going to take. So that quarter-hour planner allows you to really see exactly how long things can take for you. So the first thing I advise to do when creating one of these is to put in your ongoing, regular, weekly activities. So for the purposes of our demonstration, what we did was we just took 5 such activities, and these are kind of typical things that might be in an ongoing schedule. So what we have is school. If you're an adult, this might be work, but school or work are typically pretty big portions of your day. Now, school and work alone can be divided up by bits and pieces, different courses, different meetings you have to attend, things like that. But for the purposes of today, we're just going to make that one time block. And next to that, you're going to write down about how long that task is going to take. Okay, so next we have, for this individual, swim team. So a sport is often, or exercise, if you're an adult, is often an activity you might want to include. We estimated about 2 hours for this. Then there's ongoing regular homework. These aren't going to be those special assignments like tests or projects, but those regular nightly assignments that you have to do. Homework can take about 2 hours, sometimes more, sometimes less, but we're going to schedule about 2 hours here. Then what we wanted to include is a weekly activity that is also regular. In this case, cleaning your room. This could be laundry, this could be paying your bills, but it doesn't necessarily, just to be regular doesn't have to mean it's every day. It just has to mean it's on a regular basis, a regular schedule. So for this person, we put cleaning your room for 30 minutes. Then dinner. That's something most people do, so we also included dinner for 30 minutes. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to list all those regular ongoing activities, and you're going to start to see when you estimate next to it how long that task takes, it can really start to add up. Then what we're going to do is we're going to insert those activities into our schedule. Okay, so you're starting to see how a regular week looks. We have a sample schedule for you if you'd like to try that here, or you can go ahead and do that in your own quarter-hour planner. Then what we do is we start to talk about, okay, I have this special project I have to do at work, or I have a party I have to plan, or I want to make a really special dinner. Those are all kind of unusual activities that aren't necessarily occurring on a daily basis, but you want to somehow account for. And sometimes those are the ones that kind of get left behind. Or in other cases, you might take those on when you don't have the time and then neglect some of the more important activities that are regular activities. So in this case, since we've accounted for our regular activities, we're going to enter in a book report. This is a pretty common assignment that most students will have to face at some time or another. Now, when I talk to people about, okay, how long do you think that book report is going to take? They typically say, oh, I can knock it out in a couple of hours. So I advise that you start to break down that assignment into smaller steps, because there are a lot of smaller steps in that, and individuals with ADHD tend to have a hard time seeing those smaller steps, which also really contributes to that feeling of being overwhelmed and anxiety, and then procrastination ultimately, because you don't want to tackle something because it just seems too large and intimidating. So we start to break those down into smaller, what I call doable steps. For this example, a book report, that book report you thought might take a couple hours, well, what are the steps? What we have here is, okay, first you need to do your research. You need to figure out what your sources are going to be. What all are you going to include into this paper? That could take maybe about an hour. Then writing just an introduction, a good solid introduction might take an hour. Then paragraph 1, the body of your paper. What is that going to be? Paragraph 2, paragraph 3. So you've created an outline, okay? So how long are each one of those steps going to take? For the purposes of today, we just said about an hour each, just to make it a little bit easier. But really think, and I always advise that you tend to overestimate what you think. So if you think, oh, I'll knock that out in half an hour, might be safer to maybe even double that. And then finally, a conclusion. Make sure you incorporate editing. A lot of people leave out that time for editing, and that could make the difference between a B paper and an A paper. And then finally, really important, is make it an actual step in your process to print that paper, accounting for anything that could possibly go wrong, your computer's not working, your printer's not working, and putting it in your backpack, most importantly, because I can't tell you how many times I've worked with someone who's written a solid A paper and simply forgot to turn it in and got credit taken off. So you start to break down all those steps, and then the final piece of this puzzle is to go back into that schedule, that weekly schedule that we created, and start to insert where those empty spaces are, these individual steps. Now, this particular book report might be over the span of something like 3 weeks that we're inserting these individual steps. So not a single one step is too overwhelming to undertake, and it gets accomplished a lot quicker and more easily and with a lot less stress, which is ultimately our objective here. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. That's how to improve time management, and thank you for joining us.